topic for today's webinar is disruptions in global supply chain. Can it be an opportunity for India? As all of you are aware, we are in the midst of an unprecedented crisis gripping the humanity. And there are changes are happening in and around us, many of which is beyond our comprehension in terms of different dimensions of life. Economic, political, so many other things are happening. So that is the reason, that is only one of the reasons why we are addressing, among us, just to engage productively. Okay, coming back to today's topic, the disruptions are happening today at an unprecedented scale. Nevertheless, I'm going to talk whether this can be an opportunity related to our trade, which is leather and leather products. Yeah.
Participants,
let me begin.
I'm sorry. Participants, please mute your audios. Yeah, please proceed, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Nachit. Yeah, let me begin with the story of China. China has, in the last 2-3 decades or so, they have established themselves as the factory of the world. You take any commodity product or anything for that matter, they have a dominant share in the global production. So footwear is no exception. In fact, at the peak, they used to have in excess of 70% share in the global production. China used to have. So it's imagine global footwear production, they had over 70% share, and in the last few years or so, it is gradually coming down for a variety of reasons. And in next coming 1 or 2 years, the reduction in capacity or the business going away from China is expected to be much more steep for a variety of reasons that we are going to discuss now. But it will be naive on our behalf to assume that China will become a small player or a negligible player in the near future. Because of the kind of capacity they have, even for a reduction at 10% rate on their capacity, it will take another 15 years. They will be a dominant player, but I don't anticipate the reduction in their capacity will be in the order of 10%. They will continue to be dominate the trade, even if the production goes down in terms of prototype development, sample rooms, last mold, etc. And then the accessories and ancillaries, jewelry for the shoe finishes, everything, they will continue to lead a dominant role. And Dongguan will continue to remain a footwear capital of the world in near foreseeable future. Then also, what are the recent challenges that's happening in China with particular to footwear trade? If you really see, China had from their 70s or so, they had a one-child policy. So if you really see the available labor force, productive labor force is depleted substantially, and there is actually today a shortage of labor force in China. And also, because of the massive, rapid industrial activity, there is a huge shortage of labor, and the average labor cost in coastal areas of China is around $500 per month. Also, these days, you would have read in press and other sources that government is discouraging industries like tannery, because they want to move up the value chain. They want to move up into the product management. They want to consolidate product manufacturing, or they want to get into retail and into this thing. So basically, they are discouraging the red category industries like tanneries. So these are some of the challenges which we need to consider. It's very clear from this that the production is getting shifted, albeit little slower pace in the past, and it will pick up. That pace of going away from China will pick up much more in the years to come. So where are they heading to? Well, they are heading largely to Vietnam and nearby areas, and they are also going to Indonesia, Bangladesh, like that. Let's see each geography, what they are offering and what are their current challenges. Okay, with respect to largely Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos are even smaller countries, so let's not discuss them individually. So let's discuss them as a group. These countries are much smaller countries compared to population. You can check yourself, they are not too many people in first place. And also, it is not that they are very cheap anymore. The labor cost in Vietnam is around $300 per person. And also, it's not just only footwear industry which has gone from China, or the Taiwanese are setting up only the footwear units there. There are every other industries are setting up in these areas. Earlier, the industries came up because of the quota problem. China cannot export directly from their country to Europe. So they diversified to Vietnam those days, and recently they want to offset dependence on China, so they are also going there. Like most other industries are going. So all the industries are competing with the available labor force, which is again limited. So with all the improvements and things like that, still these countries are still having glitches in communication and logistics issues. This is the rough idea about these areas. Let's talk about Bangladesh now. Okay, Bangladesh is still a low-cost country as far as labor is concerned. They also have infrastructure and logistics issues. They also have a huge regulatory limitation in terms of sustainable production. Child labor issues are going on, and a couple of years ago, they were in the news for a large apparel factory catching fire and so many people dying, etc. Because of the ETP issues, Leather Working Group is not certifying any of the tanneries in Bangladesh at the moment. Also, they have a very limited raw material, and the skilled manpower is also limited. Though the labor is cheap per se, but the skilled manpower is still an issue there. But also, you would have noticed they are probably in South Asia or among most Asian countries, they are one of the fastest growing economies at the moment. This is largely due to their proactive government policies towards industry and investment friendly approaches. That is what you are able to see, that their GDP growth is much better than even that of India or even China for that matter. Okay, coming back to our place, India, it's a land of opportunities I consider. Let's see the advantages that we hold. We have a favorable demography with a large population, and we are definitely cost effective in terms of labor costs. And we also are well educated, largely English educated, and our skill levels are quite high compared to many countries. And also we are having exceptional good institutional supports like CLRA, FDDI, host of leather schools and footwear training institutes spread across the country. And we are also have no issues with anybody, even with foreigners coming in, there is no communication issues like one encounters in countries like China. Plus, one big advantage we also have, we are probably largest livestock population holder in this country. Okay, what are our problems? We have so many advantages. We also have some issues. What are all the issues? Let us consider. Let us list out what are all the issues. Though there are a lot of improvements made in the labor front and labor laws are a little more friendly than it used to be in the past, still compared to many countries like that we discussed just now, the labor laws are still investment unfriendly. So there we have a long way to go to make it a little more investor friendly, and that will unleash the potential human capital that we have. Also, in the past, we were largely trade union centric labor force. So that hangover still continues with the different pockets of our industrial hubs even today, and this needs to go. This militant trade union mentality among some segment of our labor population needs to be removed. I mean, they need to be educated so that they become positive and industry friendly labor force. I'm not saying they should give up their rights, but it has to match with the goal or ambition that we set out for. And another point which I'd like to also mention is lack of professionalism among middle and senior management of our enterprises. This I'm a victim of this particular factor. I'm sorry, I for about 15-20 years I was in charge of supply chain of a large company in India. most of the managers or the owners here, they don't mean what they speak, unfortunately. They say they will deliver the X order on, say, on 10th of April. Very rarely they will deliver on 10th of April. And even more sad, until you ask them, even after 10th or even after that, they will never come back to you. Sorry, I committed this date, and for whatever reason I could not deliver. Now I will deliver on this date. Nothing of this kind of communication happens. So this reflects very, very, very poor on the professionalism. So that's why, that's one of the major reasons why I listed this particular reason as one of our problem areas. Right. The next point, next challenge that we encounter is, at least in the past, our government was viewing this leather and leather product industry as a MSME industry. In retrospect, I can say very clearly it is a huge blunder from our industry body or from the government side, because if you really see, leather and leather products is a truly global industry. And at a retail level, our industry is about $300 billion. There are not many industries which are more than 300 billion. There are few, but not. We are not small. We are a large industry. If you really see, much of our raw material comes from outside, say Americas. Most of our chemical inputs comes from Europe. We do the intermediate production in South Asia. We export the intermediate to China, Korea, and things like that. The products are made. And again, it is retailed in US and not Europe. So you please tell me, which other industry can be more global than this? And we are not a small, we are huge. With this kind of industry, if government and our industries bodies are acting that we should promote only small, micro, and cottage industries, according to me, this is a huge mismatch in the policy and the reality. Probably this is one of the reasons why we never grew. Just to say, when I was in CLRI studying in college, our LNLP export used to be around $2 billion US. And today, after 30 plus years, we are still hovering around under 7 billion. And you see what's happening in our neighborhood. China was much lower when I was in college. They were not even doing our turnover. So anyway, we will discuss this again at a later point. Also, we have one more issue. Our raw material quality, particularly the bovine raw material quality, is very, not to be desired. And also, our slaughtering and flaying methods needs to be improved. So this, I thought, one of the challenges we need to address. That's why I put it here. Right. Let's move forward. So, okay. Now, what is the current, in these backdrops, let's see the current situation with the fresh side. So, China is still producing more than 50-60% of the global footwear production. But many brands, I lived in China till recently, and I supposed to visit to China quite often. So the many brands, they have started diversifying part of the business long ago, say 5, 6, 7 years ago, just to mitigate. They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. So in that sense, they started moving away from China 5, 6 years ago. Okay, and this process got further accelerated because of the trade war between Mr. Trump and Xi Jinping. In the last 1.5 years, there is a significant migration of capacities and business away from China. Okay, then in the last last 4-5 weeks, we have this new phenomena, this pandemic hitting all of us. So as days pass, most of the people, particularly in the west, of the view that China, knowingly or unknowingly, is responsible for today's pandemic situation in the world. More and more people are thinking, at least Chinese knew that this virus, and they did not contain the spread of this virus. They allowed millions of Chinese to travel all over the world. Because of them, most of them feel that they are on this situation because of China failing to contain, at least, if not by design. So these all will further increase the hostility, Western hostility towards China. I believe it will also result in lesser trade relations or reducing the dependence on China in the near future. This is part of the current scenario. Overall, and then coming back to our trade also, if you really see the current situation, overall consumer spending on leather products is reducing regularly, or at least over the last 5-6 years. I was told if you take the CLE published data on finished leather exports, let me consider for time being only the finished leather exports. The finished leather exports in the year 13-14 compared to the year 18-19 is only 27%. Suppose that what it means is in the year 13-14, had we exported say 100 square feet, in the year 18-19 we had exported only 27%. This is a huge drop. Okay, Corona pandemic is just 2 months old, but there is a significant drop in the demand. And it is also, that is the reason why I also put it, the overall consumer spending is reducing. This for sure, this we need to take into consideration while we form our strategy. And then another reason is in that reducing cake size, we have another problem that a lot of alternative materials, synthetic material taking away the leather share. In fact, the reduction in the leather volume that we just talked about is also due to the share of synthetics and alternative materials taking away. So this is another serious situation we need to factor in. Then another problem, suppose I am the purchasing manager of a large brand, say, so, but I have a problem. I want to go away from China. Then where do I go? I can consider Vietnam again, which is full. I can consider say Indonesia, Bangladesh. There are some issues, but my problem is one more. There are shortage of approved branded goods manufacturing factories outside China. So I am very constrained. So I'm forced to continue with China. So this is also a problem. It's not that everyone is readily awaiting to garland the customer walking in and then the production can start tomorrow. That is also not the case. This is what I meant here. Okay, and then we have one more problem we need to factor in is there is adverse publicity going on by vested interest groups like PETA. So we also need to encounter these facts, these vested groups with facts and figures. Right. So these are all the overall current situation. We saw how China has established as factory of world. What is the current situation in China? What are the alternate geographies that they have migrated, and what are our advantages, India's advantages and problems, and also we briefly touched upon the current situation. Now, what is that we can do? What is that we can do to factoring in the current situation, factoring in our advantage, factoring in our weaknesses? What is that we should? What are the areas we should look into to make ourselves a better place for increasing our share of production, our share of global trade in leather and leather products? So I thought first we should look at our labor laws and reform further, which can be more industry or investment friendly. This we briefly talked about, and during our discussion, some of our members can throw more light, and we will discuss if necessary. Then I also thought, if you go to say China or whether strong this thing, not just for footwear, even for other industries, there is a cluster approach. In Guangdong province of China, where I live, there is a cluster, huge cluster for furniture, say for electronic goods, say for light fitting, say for ceramics. So there is there is massive industrial complexes dedicated to one particular product range, or say one particular sub-industrial activity. That gives them the advantages of scale, optimization, R&D, innovation. There is, the benefits are manifold. That's what I mean to say. So we need to promote the cluster concept even in our leather and leather products. Say, for example, like beam house. I don't need to say the whole of India should have only one cluster for beam house. It can be regional. We can have 4-5 regions. So we can have beam houses for post tanning, for leather, footwear or leather products, and also for say chemicals, footwear components and auxiliary protection. So these cluster components have a lot of hidden advantages, and having witnessed these advantages in a country like China, I strongly propose our trade body and our commerce ministry actively consider. In fact, they were considering, they were even trying to promote some clusters in the past for reasons, probably it has not taken off. We need to address that. And then we also need to come out of this MSME mindset. I strongly advocate, we already talked about this. We are a truly global industry. There are hardly any other industry which is more global than us. And our volume, our cake size of LNLP is huge. It is $300 billion at retail level. So we should not constrain ourselves with this MSME approach. We will get nowhere. Our experience of last 30, 40 years proves we will go nowhere if we continue with this MSME approach. So we should not, there are hardly any investments come into this country on this sector. Okay, very significant, and there is very slight investment has come that we'll discuss, but it is of no meaningful scale. We should change from MSME to FDI-led growth story. This particular sector should pursue the policy of FDI-led growth story. To that extent, I am of the view, it's my personal view, we should dissolve CLE and we should become part of a larger industrial organization or industry bodies like CII or FICCI or something like that. Just our vision needs to be broader, our reach should be broader. So for this reason, I'm of this view. It's my personal view. I'm open to discuss on that. Then another area we also need to see is we need to focus domestic market. We have also come a long way. It's not that we are still what we were, say, 30 years ago or something like that. We have also come a long way. Maybe we need to be a little bit, we should have been more than what we are. That's another matter, but we also come a long way. Our domestic market is also maturing. There is discerning customers in. So if, like we also discussed in the last 2-3 days of presentation, that we should focus also on the domestic market. It has another dimension for me to say this. The people who are associated with finished leather at least are aware. The cream la cream selection goes to Europe. The earlier days, you may remember Ara, Lloyd, Scheminger, all those customers used to take the cream la cream glaze cake. Then the middle segment used to go to China for shoe making. And the next segment used to go to Agra. It's not that Agra makes lousy shoe or cheap shoes. They also export to Europe in effect. So, but it helps the tanner, it helps the tannery to move the complete pack. What will happen if you have a customer who needs only the cream selection and he doesn't need, probably it is not sustainable. So for that angle also, we need to focus on the domestic market. I strongly supported when we were discussing on Saturday by Prasanna and Sunday by Mr. Sondi, that we should have strong domestic sector. Even China has a strong domestic sector. Probably that is going to be the shock absorber in times of this. Right. Then we also need to set up design studios. We need to encourage setting up of buying houses. Unbelievable. One who visits China often will see what kind of buy-in office presence or the representative officers or brands presence in that country is amazing. Then we also need to set up large-scale training centers, manpower, human resource training centers. I believe a lot of things were done in this area by previous government, also the current government in Modi government. But I am not sure how effective these training measures are. So there are activity going on, but probably we need to increase the efficiency of these training activities. And so there's something going on, but we need to, I am of the view that we need to, I'm not sure how effective or efficient they are. So we need to look at those metrics. I was also told government gives 25% subsidy for electronic component manufacturer. I think we should, this is time we should ask our government for a similar support for footwear components, trims, and finishing factories to set up. They also should ask for substantial incentive to offset the initial teething period. Then we also should impress the government, the Commerce Ministry, to set up a speedy custom clearance procedure for value addition or re-export industry. I'm familiar with this practice in China. If you're an export factory in China, they have something called this passbook system, custom system. You get in from Hong Kong in no time. It's like there is no barrier. There is no waiting period. There is no bureaucratic hurdles and things like that, you can import hassle-free. But if you're a domestic Chinese manufacturer, then the customs procedure in China is as bureaucratic as India. So I'm only proposing here, at least for re-export industries, we should make the distinction and we should make the procedures a lot more simple. Right. So this is largely what I wanted to cover upon. Then it's not that all we have to cry that we are not successful and thing. We have some few success stories in our geography, our country, which is worth looking at. The couple of stories I'm writing here in Cheyyar, probably most of you are aware, there is a sports shoe producing company called Feng Tai. They produce 20 million pairs of shoes. 20 million is quite substantial, even by Chinese standard. It's quite a large footwear factory. And the point here I would like to emphasize is they produce 1,800 pairs per line, which is the same quantity of same productivity level they could achieve in their best factory in China. So it is not a valid excuse. No, our productivity, labor productivity is less, Chinese productivity is high. It is not quite true. This is the glaring example that our labor, if properly trained, if proper HR and IR practices are in place, our labor productivity can be second to none. This is the proof. And because of the success of this Cheyyar venture, they are also set up another venture of a similar capacity near Krishnagiri, I was told. Because of this current COVID problem, they have deferred the commencing the mass production to end of October, November or end of this year. So we have a success story at our own backyard. So you don't need to look only at China or say Vietnam for a success story. We have at our own backyard. Okay, there is one more similar story in Tamil Nadu Andhra border near Tada. They are also producing. They are supplying to Adidas. They have about 18 million pairs per annum, and their productivity is among the best. So let's not say only China can do it and say X country can do it. We can also do it. Okay. I want to add, because all those things tomorrow morning, if we start making our say shoe factories to achieve this productivity or achieve this kind of success rate, it will be little tedious. Also, I must mention here, the sports footwear or athletic footwear is the challenges are little less compared to a women's shoe or a men's shoe. For reasons, the sports shoe, you get an order 6 months in advance. You can organize many things much better than the current order cycle of say men's shoe or a women's shoe in China. You typically get 45 days at the maximum 60 days. So I am of the view, if we need to start somewhere, we need to start attacking the low hanging fruits in the first place. So like Feng Tai, like Adidas, we need to set up a dozen factories, or we need to invite people who can set up these factories, encourage them to gain a scale, say 20 million factories into 10. If we have 200 million, 300 million footwear manufacturing capacity, then from that learnings, from that experience, our footwear manufacturer can imbibe those learnings and scale up their factory. Or in between time, we can also ask these manufacturer of athletic footwear or a sports footwear to add a leather shoe line, which will be easy for them to transition from sportswear to leather footwear. And from their learnings, some of our own entrepreneurs can scale up. And then in say from 5 years from now, we should be having, if not 50-60% share, we should be talking about some 25-30% share in the global footwear production. So there are some similar stories. My ex-boss happens to be CEO of Sri City in Tada, Mr. Ramesh Subramaniam. Many of you may be knowing him. He was telling me, I was talking about this, that I'm going to talk and things like that. He was telling me there are factories in his complex, Sri City complex, which Colgate produces 1.5 million toothbrush a day. And there is one, Foxconn produces 5 million mobile phones per month. It's not that we are new to this mass scale. So this all happening in our own backyard. And we have our own ventures like Woodlands, Liberty, Red Tape. Also, they ventured into the domestic market. In my view, they tasted success, maybe at a limited success, or at a lesser success, I should say. They should be encouraged to scale up and become a big players. Yeah. With this, I thank all the participants for attending this webinar.